Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to be performing man-in-the-middle attacks with Ettercap. Right, so Ettercap is a fantastic tool for performing man-in-the-middle attacks, and the fantastic thing about Ettercap is that it provides you with a graphical user interface as opposed to the command line. Alright, so Ettercap does have a command line based utility, but the GUI version is really great. Alright, and it is a fantastic alternative to ARP-spoof. Alright, so let's get started. So by default, as I said, it comes pre-installed with Kali Linux, so you can just launch it or you can search for it. So you can just hit Ettercap, alright, and it's going to be the Ettercap graphical, alright, so just click on that. And as you can see, welcome to Ettercap. Has a fantastic logo that looks like a spider with a router on top of the spider. Fantastic. So, well, it looks as dangerous as it is. Now, what do we need to do first? The first thing we need to do is we need to go into the sniff and we need to select unified sniffing, and that's because we're using a virtual machine. So I'm going to hit unified sniffing, and it's going to ask you to select your network interface. So you can select your wireless interface if you're using one. Since I'm using the Ethernet interface, I'm just going to hit Ethernet 0 and I'm going to hit OK. Alright, so now it's going to start the unified sniffing. The next thing that we need to do is we need to go into our targets and we need to select targets. Alright, now if you go into selecting your target, you have the option of selecting the MAC or the IP address, IPv6 address and the port, but that's the long way around it. What you can do is go into your targets and go into current targets, and now it's going to sort out your targets into two sections, similar to what we had with ARP-spoof. On one side you will have your access point or your router IP. On the second side you will have your target IP address. Now in this case we are going to be performing the man-in-the-middle attack between our target, which is the Windows 7 operating system, and our router. Alright, so what we're going to do is, this time I'm going to use Wireshark to show you that indeed it does record the packets that are being intercepted in terms of the man-in-the-middle attack. So what we're going to do now is we want to go into our target 1 and we need to add our router IP address here. Right, so I'm going to hit add and I'm going to just add it. So 192.168.1.1. So that is your default gateway. The next target 2 is where you add your target IP address, which in this case, as we did in the previous video, 192.168.1.102. Alright, and we hit OK. So once we are done here, that's it. We essentially do not have to do anything else. What we now have to do is we need to go into man in the middle and we can select the ARP poisoning attack. Alright, which is what ARP-spoof was helping us to do. So once you're ready, just hit ARP poisoning and just click on that. And now you want to make sure you select sniff remote connections. Make sure that is checked and just hit OK. And once that's done, as you can see, it's going to say, it's going to give you this little log here saying the ARP poisoning victims are group 1, obviously, which is the router IP address, and group 2, which is your target IP address. Okay, so essentially once that's done, you have essentially performed the ARP poisoning attack, or in this case, you have man-in-the-middle access. So how do we actually monitor the packets? Well, I said in the previous video, we used TCP dump. In this video, we will be using Wireshark. Alright, so just open up Wireshark, and I'm just going to hit OK. There we are, and we're just going to open up Ethernet 0. And by default, now what we need to do is we need to go into Windows 7 and we need to just open up a web page here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back into Kali Linux and I'm just going to add a filter here. I'm going to select HTTP and we're going to go back into Windows 7 and we're going to click on a site like Reddit, and let's see if we were able to intercept. There we are. Fantastic. So as you can see, the source is 192.168.1.102. The destination is Reddit's IP address, and so on and so forth. The sending of packets, so on, and the sending of packets back and forth from Reddit and our target. Now in this case, we can see that the man-in-the-middle attack was successful and we are able to intercept the packets that are being sent to and from the router and our target, which is fantastic. So there you are. That is how to use Ettercap to perform man-in-the-middle attacks, more specifically the ARP poisoning attack, to get us the man-in-the-middle access. As you can see, using Ettercap, the GUI version of Ettercap is really fantastic because it's a much more easier for you to understand what's going on and you get a great user experience. Alright, that is going to be a wrap for section 7, where we looked at network sniffing and spoofing. So let us look at a summary of what we learned in this section. Alright, so the first thing we learned was network discovery with NetDiscover. So NetDiscover was a fantastic tool that we used to discover the devices connected to our network. We then learned the basics of network sniffing and we started sniffing with a tool called TCP dump. Alright, we then moved on to advanced network sniffing, where we looked at how to use a tool called Wireshark, and we looked at IP protocols and filter protocols. We then moved on to the spoofing process, where we learned what spoofing was and what the ARP protocol meant, and then we got started with ARP spoofing using a tool called ARPspoof to give us man-in-the-middle access. Alright, we then moved on to use a tool called Ettercap that allowed us to perform the ARP poisoning attack that also gave us a man-in-the-middle access, and we were able to intercept packets between a target and the router. Alright, so that is going to be it for this video, and that is going to wrap up the course. Thank you so much for joining me in this course. I hope you've learned a lot about penetration testing and ethical hacking in this course, and I wish you the very best. Goodbye.